Hello, this is Maya West with Moxie Lab, and today we're going to cover the first of 6 common barriers or obstacles to your leadership path. And this one is on picking the wrong advocate. One of the biggest barriers to finding our authentic leadership path is that we pick the wrong advocates to help us get there. The person who most taught me this lesson was my dad. His name is Bix Blaufus, which is such a great name. And my dad was a Vietnam War vet. He also was a martial artist and a small town politician and leader. And he taught me about knowing thy enemy. And of course, being in the military, he had to learn that because that was a matter of life or death. And I always thought maybe that was an overly dramatic way to go about describing the people around us and maybe slightly hostile, but that was his training and I, don't fault him for that. But one of the things that I really appreciated about that perspective is that it is true that there are people in our life that maybe we don't want to call enemies, but maybe they're not helpful. And how do we know that they're not helpful? Sometimes we don't. And what I have found in the work that I have done, and certainly in my own life, is I used to joke that my picker button was broken. That I might not have been the best at picking girlfriends or boyfriends or bosses or whatever. The button that I was supposed to use to make my selection about who I was supposed to spend time with was slightly broken. And there's a lot of reasons for that. When you have a broken advocate button, let's call it, what can happen is that you might not end up being around the people that you need to be with. And so when that happens, if you think your advocate button might be broken, the best thing you can do is figure out how to fix it. And one of the ways to get there is to think about 2 people in your life who have shown you through their actions that they've been there for you and nobody else has. So an example of this, and why we need 2, I'll get into in a moment, but it's like having the job description for those characteristics. So these are folks who, come to visit you when you're sick, help you even though you haven't asked for help. In the professional world, might advocate for the new job. In your friend world, might stick up for you when nobody else has, when you're not there. Those are demonstrations of an advocate. So one way to fix your advocate button if it's broken, which has been very helpful to me, is to think about characteristics of a nurturer as being one of those people and characteristics of a protector as being the other. And so there might be someone, maybe it's in your family of origin, parents that raised you, siblings, cousins, grandparents, somebody that has demonstrated that they are either a protector or a nurturer of you. And then to write down their personality characteristics, their job description for that position, and identify what it is about them that makes them so. Why is that important? Because if your button is broken, if your advocate button is broken, then you need a different reference point than maybe the family that you came from. And it might be that one boss that just stuck out for you. That might be that one neighbor who got you in a way that nobody else did. Whoever that person is, write out the characteristics of what made them be that protector or that nurturer for you. Sometimes they're both, but most of the time they kind of have like a dominant role that they play in your life. So when we do that exercise of writing out those characteristics of each of those people, then we can start looking for folks that demonstrate those qualities to us. And they tell us about whether they're going to be an advocate or not. Some folks are really good at finding advocates. They're the folks that always have the mentor that just shows up, that happens to be nationally recognized for whatever they're good at. And by the way, they take that time out of their day to introduce them to all their friends, and all their friends offer them jobs, and life is merry and the path of roses is in front of you and everything's great. It certainly was not my experience, and for a lot of the people that I know. So that's why we're talking about it. So this is for the folks who aren't going on the golf course necessarily and finding their dream client or their dream job or their dream contract or even their dream partner. Then we get in a little bit more personal. I've talked about the professional advocates as being a way we get there, but the other is our personal advocates. One of the most important things that we can do is to deeply evaluate if our advocate button is broken, the people that are our girlfriends, boyfriends, spouses, husbands, wives, best friends, parents, children, to make sure that they're your advocates. Because if they're not, then your greatest barrier or obstacle to your leadership path might be that person. And we'll get into why and what we do about that in a minute. But it might be a good idea to just really look at that. Because what I found, especially working with women, that the most common obstacle or barrier might be that person's spouse. And those are hard conversations to have. But when we look at that, that helps us understand where we might have a limitation in our ability to really truly manifest manifest what we're supposed to do while we're here on this planet. So on that part of the topic, let me come back and say that we all have an ability to fix our broken advocate button if we think it's in need of repair, and that it's a really exciting exercise, because the second that you go through and write down the characteristics of your protector or your nurturer, or both, those people will actually just start showing up for you, and you'll start seeing them, and they're the ones that will actually be there to help you on your path. So this is Maya, and today we covered the first of 6 common barriers or obstacles to your leadership path. Thank you, and check out my website at moxielab.com for more information.